Hi, welcome to After the Master. Today's episode features Ishaan Dua, who holds a Master in Management from ESSEC Business School, a leading school in Europe. He talks about one key strategy that anyone could use to find a job and some specific tips from his experience working in Europe, as well as pay expectations for fresh graduates. Stick around till the end to gain as much as possible, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey, hi Ishaan, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing good. It's a sunny day here at Amsterdam, quite rare.
Amazing.
So quite nice.
Thank you so much for being on my show.
My pleasure, man. Anytime.
All right, so to get started, can you give a brief introduction about your background?
Sure. So I'm Ishaan. I basically did engineering at VIT in India. And then I figured it was not for me. And then eventually went into business management. So I did a master in management at ESSEC Business School in France. And I basically this course is going to give you a background in all of management studies. And after that, you can sort of specialize in one field. So I specialized in marketing, after which I did a few internships here and there in France itself. And then I worked for a little while, and then I got another job in Amsterdam. So now I have moved to Amsterdam, and now I'm in a startup, a tech startup. I work as a content specialist. So basically, I manage the website content, the blog content, the SEO, any kind of sales collateral or PDFs that need to be made, any kind of customer stories that need to be made. So that's the kind of stuff I do. Yeah.
And what made you choose a master's in management as opposed to some other master's degree?
Yeah, I chose masters in management because I wanted to get into business, since I realized engineering is not going to be fun. I didn't want to wait for like 4 or 5 years. So MBA is this is considered somewhat like a pre-experienced MBA. Okay. And I didn't want to work. To be frank, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Right. And I didn't want to work for like 4 or 5 years in what like my dad's business or for some random job, and then figure it out after 5 years. And I wasn't even sure if after 5 years then I would have the sort of passion to actually go out and study again. So it made sense to just continue that with my studies that were going on my bachelor's, and then top it off with another master and then figure it out from there.
All right. That makes sense. And is there a particular reason for choosing Europe schools in Europe as opposed to the US or Canada?
Yeah, I foresaw Trump happening. I'm just kidding. But like,
actually, somebody else said this. I can't remember who. Yeah, somebody else said. Ravina said this actually.
Yeah,
that's why she went to Australia, because of the whole Trump thing happening around that time, 2016. I think that's also when you went. Right?
Is that so? I mean, I don't recall exactly when Trump was elected. And but the thing was, I was never super keen on the US. I think they have extremely high tuition fees, and then you don't know whether or not you'll get a visa or not. It's like a little bit screwed up, their system, right? Yeah. At least in Europe, if you're studying there, they will give you time to stay for a little while, like in France, for example. In France, after I got my degree, I technically had sort of a job search visa for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's a lot of time.
I could just hang around there and try to look for a job or do whatever I want technically. But point is, you have that time period. In the US, you get a job, but after that, you are put in some sort of ballot, and then you may or may not be chosen, irrespective of how good you are or how bad you are. It's just kind of weird.
So and the management degrees are not those STEM ones, so you just get one chance.
So maybe that doesn't know nothing with that. So STEM is even STEM has to go through the ballot. So management, to forget about it.
Yeah, of course, that's right. And I noticed that you also did a couple of exchanges with other schools
Yes.
in other countries, right? So was
Yes.
that a part of your
Yes.
program at ESSEC?
Yes. So the thing with the program at ESSEC is that ESSEC is a very flexible program. So you're given 4 years. At the time you're given it was 4 years. I believe it's turned it to 3 now. But either way, in this 4 years, I could model my study in any way I wanted.
Okay.
And so I did 2 internships. I went for 2 exchange programs, and so yeah, so I lived in basically 3 countries through this degree.
Yeah.
So basically, I was in Copenhagen for like a summer exchange. Then I was in Prague for a winter semester exchange.
Oh.
And it was quite nice. I think this is one of the benefits of some of these colleges in France, especially in ESSEC, that you have a longer period. So if you look at other countries, like for example the Netherlands, it's a 1-year master's. So then you cannot say for sure whether you'll be able to do all these exchange programs and stuff. So I think, it's like a very personal choice. It really depends on what your priorities are.
And do other people, I mean, do most people choose to do the exchange, or is it like, just a few students?
So anyone can do it.
Oh.
Some people choose to do it, some people don't.
Okay.
So I have seen, for the most part, many people around me do it, because it's not just an exchange program, which is, so they have like several other options as well, because ESSEC has a school in Singapore too. So some people do this sort of Singapore thing.
Right.
They have another school in Morocco. Some people do the African track. Some people do the Singapore track. Some people will go on exchange to another school, which is what I did. So there's like multiple options. People usually choose to pick one of these and try to get this other exposure. So it's quite nice in that sense.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, what's the international student versus domestic, or say European student ratio like?
Okay, so at ESSEC, specifically of late, I would say there are a lot of internationals, but it is majority of people from Asia.
Asia. So Indians and Chinese mostly?
Indians and Chinese, and like people from Taiwan as well. But basically,
maybe quite a few from Iran also. I think Iranians are.
Iran, I've seen a few, but not that many. And the rest are French and Europeans, of course. But I would say that the number of Europeans that will be in your batch will be probably 20. But then the number of Indians will be like 80. In my time, it was 40.
Okay.
They have just pushed that amount year after year.
Interesting. And I believe you learned French before you went.
I learned A1 level at Alliance Française, and I think it helps. But at the end of the day, I couldn't even ask for a croissant at the boulangerie because the accent is totally different. So what you learn there is just on another level
for the exam, basically.
And then, But I would advise that if you can learn French before going, it's highly advisable, because even if you don't get the hang of, because French is not necessarily about the grammar. French is just about the way it's spoken. It's just spoken in a very different way than it looks. So you need to get the hang of that if you want to talk to people. But if you finish A2 or B1 level before going, you would have a good sense of the core grammar. So at least you have that sort of structure of which you can sort of build that base. Uske upar, then you can sort of bounce upwards from there. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And like if someone is interested in studying French, I would advise, learn the language before going as much as you can. Then go there, try to talk to people in French, just try. And it's going to be embarrassing, but it doesn't matter. Do it after having a few beers if that helps. It usually helps. And also watch TV shows. It helped me a lot.
Yes.
And maybe like use like Babel or Duolingo in your free time, just kind of for fun.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
what I would use.
All right. Now I want to talk a little bit about the marketing aspect, because you chose marketing as your specialization towards the end of, or at some point in your master's, right? And from others, from what I know, it seems like marketing can be kind of a hit or miss in terms of, finding jobs once you graduate, because there's, even in certain English speaking countries, there is this cultural connect that is missing, if, or at least the perception is such, if you're an international student, if you're from another country. So was that an issue for you, or did anybody talk to you about this at the time?
So there are two things, right? Here. So one, you talk about this whole cultural perception things. I think it makes a lot of sense when you say it like conceptually. Of course, like every country has its own culture, and to market and actually touch the feelings of someone else, you need to understand that culture. But what helps is that, let's say in France, there are no roles available in English that pertain to the French audience. Okay. So every French audience role is to someone who can speak French, and that's usually a French or person, or even Moroccan person. And the English role is for an international audience. It will be like EMEA, so like European zone. So you'll be like marketing coordinator for EMEA, or marketing insights for Europe, something like this. So then it doesn't really matter to them whether they get a Danish person or an Indian or whatever, because no one knows the whole culture, and you're going to be doing sort of things that apply to everyone.
Right. Okay.
Right. So I have not in Europe experienced this issue in an English role. That I can speak English, the role is English, but I don't have the cultural sensitivity for Europe. So that just has not happened.
Okay. All right. So then, thinking back about the exchanges that you did, what would you say were the advantages of going to these other schools in other countries? So did that help you at some point later on, or was it just like, an experience gathering kind of a thing?
It's obviously an experience, and I would advise everyone has that experience, right?
Yes.
Because when I went there, I had two different experiences. I would say three different experiences in each of my school. In ESSEC, when I came, because there were quite a few Indians, there was that initial comfort zone. Then when I went to Copenhagen, I was totally away from that sort of comfort zone. And in Copenhagen, the people that came were from all over the world. It was like many people from the US also came, because there was a summer program, so everyone is free at that time. Then when I went to Prague, it was a very European experience, because it was the Erasmus sort of exchange. So I think I met very different kind of people in each sort of setting, and different age groups were a little similar, but still like in Prague, it was probably a little bit of a younger age group, and for a longer period, so you would get a chance to travel around as well, and so on. So in terms of exposure, it helps a lot. In terms of getting to see different countries, different people, it helps a lot. But then if you look at it from the job sense, I think you should probably know how to pitch it. So the way I used to pitch it is that when I was in interviews, if at all anything would come up about interpersonal relationships, I could use this and leverage this by saying that, I have worked with and been with a diverse set of people. Right. So, and also like sometimes I was applying for, of course, I didn't end up going for them, but I was applying for graduate programs. There are sort of like graduate programs are sort of trainee programs in which you are for 1 or 2 years associated with a certain company. And then if you're good enough, they sort of push you up in a managerial position or something like this.
Okay.
So you're like training in different, all different domains, and then eventually you pick one domain. So I was applying for these. So in these kind of things, people from all over the world come and apply because everyone is just graduated student. And in that, this kind of international exposure thing would pop up a lot because you're actually working with that zone that kind of international group. So then I would be able to leverage it very well. Yeah, because once you're actually in the company, then maybe your group of people is more of that nationality. Like Deloitte France will have more French people, but then the Deloitte trainee program would probably have people from all over. So then that internationalism becomes a big factor.
I'm glad that you brought up the part about interviewing, because I wanted to talk a little bit about or ask you about the resources that institutions in Europe or in France provide for students. For example, in the US or in some other countries, you'll have career fairs, you'll have all these networking events that are organized by the school, right? So what was the situation like in ESSEC?
We had 2 career fairs a year. So all these companies would come, would set up their sort of stalls, and then you can go talk to them.
Okay.
And they have sort of a system where they do some workshops. So they do a workshop to help you enhance your CV and this and that. But I think in my time, I don't feel that it helped a lot, to be honest.
Why?
I mean, okay, first of all, you go in there in your first or second year, you have no freaking idea what to ask. Okay. Because see, everyone says you should ask questions to your interviewers and you should have things to ask about what your interest is. But what if you're not, you have no freaking idea because you've not really worked that much before, and you don't know where your passion necessarily lies. But you are supposed to portray a certain sort of like interest and ask sort of questions, but you don't know anything about business. How on earth are you supposed to ask questions? Because business, what you study in school and what you have in those industries is totally different. I've actually learned most from my work experiences. Like what you learn in school is just totally different. It's just like building a baseline of sorts, which may or may not be used, by the way. It's just same. It's the same as we studied in school, as we studied in college. Everything we learn is on the job at the end of the day, no matter what school you go to.
Right. But
so yeah, coming back to the point. So I think the fairs and all, I don't think it helped me a lot. I think it can help people who know what they want to do. So like if you have a sort of great direction, okay, I want to get into this company and I want to get into this domain. Like for example, ESSEC was like really famous with for fashion, for getting into luxury and fashion. So let's say those companies have come, you can ask them very pointed questions, and all those recruiters will come. And then if you have that sort of not intellect, but if you sort of have that passion and that knowledge about that field, they will take notice.
Okay.
Right. And then they will take your CV and they will try to remember, because 80% of the times they don't even take the CV. 80% of the times they just say apply online. Okay, I'm right. And then we were all like, cool, we could have done that at home, right? So yeah, I think it's good if you know exactly what you're going for, but otherwise it's a little bit not worth it. What is worth it though is that our structure allowed us to do internships whenever we wanted to. So that really helped because we were not bound in any way. So jab mila tab chale gaye. So like whenever you got the internship, you could go and do it, or if you found something you liked, you can go and try. So then that builds your CV, and then that helps you get the next one. It is always the toughest to get your first internship. The second internship is comparatively piece of cake.
Okay. So what helped you get your first internship? Because you've done quite a few.
Power of volume. Sorry?
You've done quite a few internships. Like 4 to 8 to 10 months, right? In different companies in France, right? So what helped you get your first internship?
That's what I said, like sheer power of volume, man. It's just you keep applying.
You keep applying, okay.
What I would say is that if you have some sort of work experience back in India or from wherever you're from, it will always help, because nobody really, you will be noticed because of your school. After that, if there's your CV is a blank piece of paper, you're not going to get a chance very easily, especially in a country that is not an English speaking country. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to sort of fill that up with some sort of extracurricular you did in college. Like you may think this community manager even in college is not important, but it on the face of it is actually. If you can actually derive some thoughts out of it and be able to talk about it in a good way, and apart from that, you can also try to do, if you don't get your internship in France, let's say for your first month, go to India, do an internship, learn over there, come back and get another internship.
Right.
That work X background is what will help you. You must look for a course that allows you to do an internship as part of the course.
Okay.
Look at that and look at the visa regulations, because those two will define whether or not you can jump into other jobs. It's important to have that European experience on your CV so that other European companies can trust you to be able to adapt to that working style.
Okay. Can you elaborate on the second part a little bit? What do you mean by that?
I mean, it's more like, from what I have noticed, the fact that I had the first internship in Paris allowed me to get the second internship in Paris.
Okay.
And the work experience in India wouldn't necessarily matter as much.
Okay.
If it's an internship. If it's a full-time job, if you've done like full-time work for 2 years, of course it will matter. But I think it really matters, at least that was the case in France, that okay, I had this internship in some company, it was in Paris, France, so they know, okay, I can work in that,
right,
in that culture,
yeah.
So I think that is the thing. And I have seen so many people who have not, thought of this. They have gone to some college, even colleges like I think LBS and all, you want to get into LBS, but you don't realize that UK, now it's changing, but UK it was very rigid. It's like nonsensically rigid. And then you go into such a school, you pay all that money, and then you have to go back home and like you don't even get a chance. So how is it worth it? So try to go in a school that has that structure set up to allow you to do at least one internship, because that allows you to prove yourself maybe in that company where they can maybe extend your internship or get a chance elsewhere.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. And was your transition to the role in Netherlands an issue at any point?
Not at all. Actually, Netherlands is way more chill, so it suits me much more. Like everyone is English speaking, much more international environment.
Right.
Transition was not at all difficult, because actually, if you look at, you saw my LinkedIn, if you look at it, actually, I have worked before this in all big companies.
Yeah.
Okay. And like big as in like not mid-size, like L'Oreal, Philips, etc.
Correct.
Okay. And then uske baad I have moved to a startup type environment. And so there's a massive shift. And then you realize also that all of these big companies, they have so much lag. Okay. You're communicating by email. They don't use the newest tools, because if they want to get some new tools that make your like work more efficient, it has to go through some shit ton of processes, and that never happens. So when I came here, I realized, man, there is stuff I used to find difficult to do in those companies that I can do in a breeze now, just because we have project management tools, we have some sort of better communication suite, like imagine managing a project on email versus a project management tool. It just makes a world of a difference. And having to shuttle through some 600 emails to find that one freaking PDF doesn't make sense. So so that I think the transition was actually smoother than anticipated, and I was pleasantly surprised that things are way better.
Interesting.
Yeah. There was one more thing I wanted to say that was just slipped off my mind now. It's fine. सोचता हूँ actually. Yeah. Also, I mean, like I would look at like all of these visa things a little more carefully, you know,
Yeah.
because people don't realize it, and different schools have different options. For example, because I was in this French school, I had the option of 2 years as a job search visa. Then not just that, I had an option of a job search visa in Netherlands too, because my school was in the top 100 list or something.
Interesting.
Okay. So all of these things you should like pay attention to.
Right. Okay. So is there something now, you know, probably you were figuring these things out step by step, one by one when you were there. And is there something in particular that you focused on from the perspective of getting, apart from, as you said, volume of just applying, but after that for the other internships or interviews that, you know, when you were finding stuff, is there something you focused on?
Just apply with and okay, this is the tip. This is all related to a CV. First of all, what is your the people that there are 2 ways that these things work. Okay, you apply and you're put through some sort of automated filter. So they have some sort of software.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that software picks up keywords.
Correct.
So you need to find a way to put in those keywords somehow. Now, whether that is through your prior experience in college or whether that is through some sort of experience you gain in India, it doesn't matter, but it has to be there. Otherwise, this filter is going to reject you directly. Okay.
Correct.
Or the second thing, the HR is going to view it by themselves. Again, if the HR is going to view it by themselves, they need to see something pertaining to the job role.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to look at 5 or 6 sort of roles that you like. Now you need to find a sort of bridge between all of these tasks and responsibilities and try to form 6 or 7 points, because you can't put all of those points. You have to put the most common important points over there.
Right. Correct.
Then you will seem relevant. The idea is that your CV needs to look relevant. That's basically, in a nutshell, what you need to do.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's it. That's pretty much it. But
leveraging networking can work, but then it's not necessary. See, all of this networking, you know, it will work when you build it over years.
True.
One like my first internship was not any people I met during my first internship did not play any part in my second internship. But it will always help to have like a good relationship with your manager, so on, because she will or he will have a network that they can leverage.
Yeah, and most people
I have not used it,
yeah.
but other people I know have.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. CV format also matters. Don't make it like a half-assed format.
Yeah,
then
of course.
Basically go to your school, go get in touch with a senior who's got internships. Okay. Then you ask for the CV, then you model it.
And as you mentioned these softwares, there are certain websites where you can kind of test, you can place certain keywords, you can test whether your resume actually makes sense according. So these are some tips and tricks.
So all of that you can do initially, and all of that helps initially. After a couple years of working, you get the hang of it. You don't need all of it.
Right. So coming to the advice bit, right, which is sort of the last part of each episode. Is there something you wish you had gotten earlier?
I mean, sure, like I said, right? You can, if you learn French, you will obviously see it's not just about the job and so on, right? It's also about what experience you get over there. If you don't learn French, you can very easily live and finish that course there, but you're not going to absorb any of that atmosphere. You're not going to get any kind of experience. It's like doing the sort of digital courses, right? तो मतलब कोई point ही नहीं है. So if you're going there, try to get involved in things and I mean, I was involved in a lot of associations. It was difficult to get in because I didn't speak French, but I tried to push myself and go through that initial sort of communication barrier, because otherwise schools are all the same. They're going to teach you theory, which you may or may not use. And what you gain is from the experiences you have over there. Try to get into all of these extracurricular things. We were organizing all the events of the school. We had a budget of 700k euros, and to learn, and we were making events for 5,000 people. So that's where you learn, actually, because you are in a way managing a mini business. You are learning how to manage people, events. You're learning how to manage communities, right? And then you can also use all of that to drive interviews for any kind of job search. So yeah, I mean, that's the that no one gave me that advice, but that's the advice maybe I would give. Don't just focus on getting that theory and that 9-pointer or whatever, because that stuff is not even used. And the best part, in France, nobody gives a shit about your GPA.
Right.
No one. I have never been asked my GPA. My GPA has never been on my CV. It doesn't matter. Only your job interview matters.
The point that you mentioned, basically, to summarize what you said, if you learn the language, you're able to penetrate through all these, whether it's the extracurriculars that will add to your CV as experiences or other internships. And similarly, Soumya said a very similar thing. He was in the Netherlands. He said that if he had learned some Dutch, so he would have probably had better chances at working at academies and stuff when he was looking for internships. So yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but then again, so that's the thing, right? So Soumya's perspective is from Netherlands and working in academies in sports. So sports is a place where, and he did sports psychology. So he will definitely need the language. But if I look at Netherlands from a business perspective, let's say you came to Netherlands in business school, I think it's an exceptional idea, because you will have zero kind of constraints I did to get into things you want to.
Because right? English is much more of a working language.
Everyone speaks English there. So maybe I believe that even in these sort of schools, the extracurricular part was a little bit difficult to get into if you didn't speak Dutch, because obviously, the Dutch people had their associations. So if you are there for 1 year, you're probably not going to penetrate into all of that. But at least from an academic point of view, all the academic structures were in English. In ESSEC, for example, even if you were a class representative or not the class representative, but the cohort representative who was supposed to be part of all of these conversations about how education must evolve in the school, it was in French. So
okay,
that's the point. So, but at least in Netherlands, that doesn't exist.
Right.
The structure, the core structure is English friendly in the Netherlands. And so even when you want to go get an internship or job, it is far easier. And also Netherlands is a tech, like a budding tech city. So all new tech startups are coming here. In all of these startups, they want English speakers. So I think Netherlands is a very good option for people who want to come and not want to go through all of that constraints that a language causes.
Right. And if you're comfortable with it, can you give some idea about the kind of pay expectations people can have once they, say, graduate from a management course, not an MBA, but the kind of course that you did, whether it's in France or based on your experiences?
Yeah, definitely. So it depends on what role you land and so on, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, you need to realize that these MIMs are sold as, oh, it's just like an MBA, but actually it is not, because in an MBA, people have worked for 6 years. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they're going to do an MBA to elevate their position and then get into like really good managerial positions and
Correct.
get hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever a year. You are coming there with no experience. So don't expect too much, first of all, right? So yes, I don't know who all gives these stories, but these are there on, you get a great comparison, okay? MIM versus MBA, and like MBA is this. These are two different degrees. They will be vastly different in what you learn as well, because in MBA, you are surrounded by experienced people. You are surrounded by people who have learned practically and giving you that practical knowledge. It's like, imagine learning in a case study environment with real case studies versus an environment where they're teaching you theory. It's all vastly different, right? So if you've not had any experience, you're going to get a entry level package. And so an entry level sort of salaries in France start from 32,000 euros a year.
Okay.
And up to, I don't know, like 70,000-80,000 a year. And this is probably the high end in the finance kind of industries.
Okay.
And everything also depends on what kind of industry you go in. Let's say you get into marketing in the banking industry, you will get a higher pay because banking industry pays are usually higher.
Right.
And then you are getting into what was most surprising for me was to see that these luxury companies and companies like L'Oreal and all of these FMCG companies, they don't pay at all. It is in that 32 to 38K range. Uske baad, then they obviously will have some sort of perks like stock and so on. But it's a little bit surprising for me to see such big companies have the average pay package.
And during your internships, were you paid like on an hourly basis, or
you are paid? I would say in an internship, right? In France, you are paid unless you go to a very small startup and stuff. You will be paid between 1,000 to 1,800 euros a month.
And is that like enough to live in Paris?
Yes.
That's enough? Okay.
It's enough to live in Paris. It was like enough to even save a little bit, actually.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. One last question, which I always end with. Is kind of philosophical also. When would you consider yourself to be successful?
The fuck, dude. What kind of question is this? When would I consider myself successful?
Yeah. Or what is your definition of success, if you want to?
My definition of success is just blissfulness.
Okay.
So I'm already successful.
That's fine. Some people think they will never be successful. Some people think they're already successful. That's a good range. Cool. All right, Ishaan, thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please share this within your network and please subscribe to stay tuned. Thank you.